going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube. We are live. Let's get the show on the road. Todd asking, what time does it start? Right now, 7:30 on Wednesdays and on Sundays. What is going on? This might be a little bit shorter than the last episode that we had, since that lasted, all of 2 hours or so that we had that going. But today, what we're going to be breaking down is a couple things. So first off, there's a little bit of news we got to go through. We also have to talk about what went down with Justin Fields, because that's all everybody's talking about. So we're going to break that down. What went on during the St. Brown podcast, but then also I kind of want to go through some of the free agents that nobody's talking about, some of these random positions, because I just want to cover all of our bases and say, would the Bears ever sign any of these people if they want to have some veteran depth or maybe even a veteran starter? So we're going to be going mainly on the offensive side of the football, because defense, we know that we need a safety, we know we need a defensive end, and it'd be nice to have a veteran D-tackle. We've talked about those. So it's talking about the positions we don't normally talk about on this show. So let's get this on the road. Let's talk about some of the veterans that actually got released, not from the Bears, but from other teams that, honestly, the Bears might have interest in them. And if you have interest in these free agents, let me know down below in the comments as well. But let's get started with Tracy Walker, the safety from the Detroit Lions. He's more of a free safety, and we obviously got rid of our free safety. I think Tracy Walker could be someone that you might be able to get at a lower price point that can give you good safety play at that free safety position. So he's definitely a name to watch. You can obviously sign him kind of whenever, because he's going to be released. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out for, because now a new person has entered inside of that safety race. But there's another player that is at another position of need for the Bears, and that's at center. Brian Allen got released from the Los Angeles Rams, and something that's important that we need to know is that 2 years ago, Ryan Poles was trying to sign Brian Allen as the center for the Bears, but ultimately he decided to stay with the Rams. And since then, he's been banged up, he's been injured. Now we know that our Bears don't like to sign people that have injury concerns or injuries that have kind of caused them to miss time. But Brian Allen, when healthy, he fits the system. He gives you what you want out of that center. He's familiar with the McVay style of offense. And I think that Brian Allen could be a very low-key, potentially cheap signing, because he was out pretty much all year last year. And if the injury concerns all pass and the Bears really like him that much, he could be a really good person to get. Unlike, like there's Evan Brown. He's a step up from Evan Brown. And if you can get him at that veteran side, looks pretty darn good. And yeah, Todd saying better than Patrick. I agree, right? Like when I heard that, I went, so we got Patrick instead. We signed Lucas Patrick instead of Brian Allen. Brian Allen would have, imagine what would have happened if we signed a competent center. I mean, he might have been banged up, and then it might have been the same exact thing that happened. But ultimately, Brian Allen would have been a huge step up. And if the Bears signed Brian Allen, I really like that. And it seems like you could get him cheap. So definitely something to look out for. But let's talk about the news. Let's talk about the news that everybody's talking about and break this down. Now, if you were living under a rock or just not on social media, you might have missed that Justin Fields was on the St. Brown's podcast, which is Equanimous St. Brown from the Bears, and also Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have their own show on the 33rd team, and it was very interesting because Justin Fields was on it, and they asked him a lot of very interesting questions. And so I kind of have my own little takeaways that I want to go through there. And if you have any thoughts on it, let me know down below too. What did you think about this interview? And if you haven't seen it, don't worry. We'll cover it all here. So some of the key points. First off, I just want to say Justin Fields is an awesome guy. And it's hard because I feel like the Bears, I still feel like the Bears are just going to sign Caleb or draft Caleb Williams. You see why people like him so much. Him talking, you see, we see who he is when he's being interviewed. And when he's being interviewed, he's very reserved. He's not giving you his full personality. When he was on that show, if you haven't seen it, I strongly suggest watch it just because you see his full personality come out. And you're like, this guy's awesome. This guy is super cool. And that's where you understand why everyone likes him. He just seems like a very laid back, but can crack jokes. Very cool dude. So that was a big takeaway for me. But obviously, the big headline that was out there, because they kept on teasing this, right? Why? Because he teased that he was going to tell us why he unfollowed the Bears. And the premise of it was that he unfollowed them and the NFL because he just doesn't want to get distracted. And one of the reasons, he's going to be going on vacation and he just doesn't want to be distracted with all the stuff going on right now. And for him, he mentioned how anytime that there's a post, and we know this because we see it. Anytime there's a post, you have the people that want Justin Fields saying Justin Fields has to stay. Then you have Caleb Williams people saying it's Caleb Williams, and you just get this debacle. So I understand why any picture of him, or he just doesn't want to see any post, because it could be a post about Eddie Jackson, and then Eddie Jackson being cut, and then they go announce the Fields trade next, right? So I understand. It makes sense as to why he doesn't want to get notified by that, and I think it's fair. I know some people might say that, hey, it's that whole thing with Mitch Trubisky turning off the TVs, right? It's that. No, I mean, when I go on vacation from normal work, I delete my Microsoft Teams app, my Outlook app, I turn off notifications on social media. I do all this stuff to disconnect and enjoy and not have all these a million things going on. So I understand why he's doing stuff like that. And like we were mentioning before, it probably was nothing, and it is nothing. So nothing to see here from the Fields front of it all. Also, what is going on, broski? Nice to see you here. But also, let's see. Yeah, poor damage control by Justin. I thought it was okay. I thought that he did what he needed to, and I thought that it was good, right? I think overall, it makes sense. And it makes sense. And to me, it doesn't really change too much. I just want to see, and this is the next thing, the next key point. Justin Fields just said he just wants it all to be over. And that's where you also see like the NFL rumors accounts and those other big accounts out there on Twitter and everywhere else. And they'll kind of manipulate it. They'll be like, he just wants things to be over. He just wants stuff to end. Really, all that he said was he's just sick of all the stuff going on. He just wants to know where he's going to be and where he's going to play. So it makes sense. But also, Todd saying Chicago is a hard place to play. He needs a break. Exactly. Like, I 100% get it. And he just needs, and especially too, where he was saying as well, he likes to watch film. And he said this during the interview. He likes to watch film. He wants to know what's going to happen next. And yeah, like, I get that, because you don't want to understand all of Shane Waldron's offense if you're not the guy. Because if you are the guy and you know that you're the guy moving forward, then yeah, study as much film as you want. But if he's just going to be traded, then why should he do all this extra work? He just wants to know where he needs to be. And that's where last episode we did talk about this, where it's important for a lot of teams to try and get the trade done now, so that Fields, if he gets traded, he can now just go straight into his book and be like, all right, I want to learn the playbook. I want to know what we're going to do. And also for Ryan Poles to get a trade done with that pick, so that Justin Fields and Shane Waldron can be all buddy-buddy, and then he can get to work, right? That's what he wants to do. But also, as is Chicago Bears media, we also have to talk about some of the bonus points and just some of the little extra pieces, right? They asked him about his favorite stadiums, and basically the Steelers stadium came up a bunch, and instantly I went, oh my God, yeah, the Steelers. That's one of the places he might play. So just wanted to call that out as a quick little thing that he brought up the Steelers stadium as being one of his favorites. He brought up a lot, but ultimately narrowed it down to the Lions and the Steelers. But also, too, there's a lot of talk about Atlanta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I got to give the guy some credit. Like, I've listened to their shows before, and I haven't been a big fan of some of the stuff that they've done, but I thought that this was a phenomenal podcast. They knocked it out of the park. And he started asking Justin Fields, why are you following Drake London? Do you know Drake London? And he goes, no. And you could see that he's trying to ask Justin, like, so why are you following Drake? Why are you following London, right? Why are you doing that? And and I thought that was at least interesting, but he brought up that he also really likes Atlanta's playmakers. He likes Bijan. He likes, with Pitts and Drake and, Drake London. And he said, hey, they're probably like a receiver away or something like that. So it was nice to know. But then the other last little piece about the Atlanta Falcons was he was just saying they asked him how it would feel if he ended up having to play back at home. And he did say a very honest answer. He said I'm paraphrasing here, but he said that he wouldn't necessarily love it just because he knows that people are going to be like hitting up his phone for like game tickets and stuff like that. I think that we can all kind of relate. If we were a big name athlete coming back home, you know that your friends from high school, your friends from college would be sending you messages. So I get it, right? I totally understand where that is, but I think it was just a quick little quirk. The only other things that I want to mention, I loved that he mentioned that the Lions are just dirty players, so gotta love that. And he also opened up on the refs yet again. He seemed very human, which was really nice to see. Also, too, saying that Chase Young has been the best player that he's ever played with. But yet again, like we already knew that they were good buddies, but also Chase Young, it's just unfortunate, that knee injury, because he just doesn't look like the same dominant force. So, also, broski, what you guys say? Fields is bitter. He's hinting at playing for Atlanta and Pitt. His time is done in Chicago. It's important that Poles doesn't tip his hand. I agree there, right? And like we've said before on this show, Poles, I feel, is doing a very good job at this because all the news that we're hearing is that Poles isn't actively shopping Fields. Poles isn't all that we know is that if you listen to Brad Biggs said this, I believe it was today. He said, listen, they're just deciding which quarterback they want to pick at one. That's it. And then you have Courtney Cronin. So two of the most plugged in people just saying the Bears just are going to go and get a quarterback. Now, what's great about that is that's a great way to say, hey, the price for poker is up for this number one pick. But also, it might be as simple, and that's where I think a lot of it's as simple as they're probably just going to go with Caleb. But overall, I thought it was a very good interview. Very well done. But let's get into the main topic at hand. Let's talk about some of these random, unknown free agent position groups that we really haven't talked about, but still could be something that the Bears ultimately end up targeting. That's why I'm not going through linebackers. I'm not going through corners because I ultimately think they're not going to be signing someone to a decent or moderately priced deal because they already have their guys at those positions. So let's get started actually at the quarterback position and talk a little bit about who is available at the quarterback position. Now, why would we be looking for a quarterback? Well, let's just say that the Bears want a veteran presence inside of the locker room. Because like we've said, if the Bears go with Caleb Williams, or if they go with the rookie, or if they keep Justin Fields, it might be good to have some sort of veteran presence that can just assist the quarterback through everything and just kind of help them grow. Or also, maybe they want a quarterback to start over a rookie or something like that. We just don't know. My guess is you just want someone that can assist that quarterback. So let's just talk a little bit about some of the backup quarterbacks that I just wanted to throw out there that are on the market that I think are kind of solid backups. So number one is Ryan Tannehill, and he's projected to get 2 years, $5.5 million on average. And also let me know down below, are you up for bringing in a veteran quarterback? Depending on if it's Fields or if it's a rookie quarterback. You can take it however you'd like. But Ryan Tannehill, I think, is a sneaky good player to add to the team. If you want to have a good backup quarterback that can also assist a rookie quarterback or a younger quarterback in understanding the offense. And at 5.5, not bad. And Tyrod Taylor's the next. Tyrod Taylor has been a career backup and a career good backup who's just been a sound player. Yet again, a fairly athletic quarterback similar to Ryan Tannehill. And that's where you're going to have an athletic quarterback no matter what. Jacoby Brissett is next, $6.5 million. I'm not as big of a fan about Jacoby Brissett if you're going to bring in a veteran. But then, yet again, a solid player, but I'm not as high on him. But then Jameis Winston, if you really want Jameis, very firecracker in the locker room. I don't know how much mentoring he would be doing, but 1 year, $4 million. The wild card, though, that I wanted to bring up is Drew Lock. 1 year, $2.75 million. Drew Lock, the former quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, he might be the youngest person on this list, but still, Drew Lock is a quarterback that understands the Shane Waldron system, that has been there for multiple years to understand. So if you want someone that has been there, done that, and understands it well, Drew Lock might be someone that the Bears say, hey, can I bring in Drew because he's been the backup. He's been a good person that I want in my quarterback's room that can assist the quarterback. So look for Drew Lock. That's why I really wanted to bring up the backup quarterbacks, because whoever that quarterback is, I think that Drew Lock could really assist if the quarterback's coach and also Shane Waldron think that he could be a viable asset in that quarterback's room. Now, what does that mean for Tyson Bagent? I think that is the sneaky question, because Tyson Bagent has played well. He's been a good backup quarterback for the Bears when he had to come in and play. Now, can you just stash him on the practice squad and then hope nobody picks him off? But, right, I would rather do everything in my power if you draft a quarterback to make sure that he's the guy. Get a veteran, make sure that this one you can't mess up. This one you can't screw up. So to me, I like Bagent. I love the story, but I'd much rather just say, do whatever you can and make sure that that franchise quarterback can be developed. So that's where I wanted to bring up Drew Lock, because I think he could be a good asset if he is a good person inside of that quarterback's room. But like I mentioned before, let me know. Are you up for adding a backup, or what are your thoughts? Let me see what y'all have to say. Broski saying Bagent is proud to be a Bear. Bagent is training hard this offseason. Don't sleep on him. See, that's the thing. Like, that's the hard part, because he was good. But like I said, like I just mentioned, I am curious if they want someone to kind of bring someone along, or do you kind of pull a Nathan Peterman and just sign a kind of a crappy backup, or maybe like Drew Lock is the person that is on the practice squad, right? And if someone poaches him, you go, okay, whatever, right? And then Broski saying, I've always wanted the Bears to have a solid young quarterback as a backup. I'm done with these over-the-hill quarterbacks. Todd Davis saying, I disagree. I believe Justin stays. Maybe pick up Jaden Daniels. Keep 2 quarterbacks next year. There is no one coming out. We can unload either next year for a lot of picks. No veterans. Please keep Bagent. And then Bagent is an ideal backup. He's going to keep getting better too. And then Guy Incognito saying, draft JJ. There's your backup for one more year of JF. So, y'all are convincing me with some of the Bagent love. Maybe then they get a backup. Maybe they get that veteran that then sits on, when we were talking about this more. Yeah, like if you bring in, let's just say a Drew Lock, and you just throw him in and you have him in for the offseason. And then maybe then you can then put him on your practice squad. And then if he gets poached, he gets poached, right? But you still get to keep like a Tyson Bagent, and you still get some of that developmental pieces. So I haven't seen who the third quarterback is for the Seahawks, but it might be worth looking into. And I think that's the big question. How do they want the quarterback room to be ultimately? Also, True Blue NYC saying JF1 wants to stay. The team wants him. The city wants him. We'll have to see. And then the power of polls compels you. Well, Mr. Mayhem, what is going on, my friend? But let's go over to probably the most fun position that I want us to talk about, and also probably the most polar opposite opinions that we're going to get in the fan base, the running back position. So this is something that I've seen some other shows talk about, and I'll just be upfront right now. I do not want to sign a running back. I'm team you don't pay running backs. So that to me is something that I don't want to see. But it'd be fun. It's kind of like with Bijan Robinson, like we talked about last episode. Having Bijan Robinson would be a lot of fun. And if you disagree, let me know. Because if you're looking at some of these true running back ones, because let's say that we don't know what Shane Waldron wants out of his running backs. So to me, maybe he goes all out, but I agree with Bears Bones. I don't want to pay for a running back. I don't want to pay for a running back. But like I said, let me know if any of you all disagree with the paying of running backs. Because let's just go through some of the money and the dollars for this. So I chose true running backs that have shown it as the number one running back. Saquon Barkley is out there, 3 years, $12.25 million in average. That's what he's projected to get. Derrick Henry, 2 years, $10 million average. Austin Eckler, 2 years, $6.75 average. Josh Jacobs, 3 years, $11.5 average. And Tony Pollard, 3 years, $8 million average. So, what do we think down below in the comments? Because the only person, like, okay, it's like, I see it. It's like, Eckler, maybe that would be kind of fun. He had kind of a down year. 6.75 isn't bad. But then I go, I'd rather spend that money on a veteran defensive tackle. I would rather spend that money on other positions rather than that running back position. And also, like what Todd's saying, you could draft a Bucky Irving. I'm a fan of you draft a running back every year. Why? Because usually people hold 4 running backs. So if you draft a running back every single year, you just kind of have a natural cycle with them just being kicked out. And if you end up drafting a Treston Ebner, then they're gone a little bit early, so then you can sign like a Travis Homer, right? So that's the big piece. But also, let's see, True Blue NYC saying Herbert and Roschon isn't good enough last season. We really missed David Montgomery. Get King Henry. See, and this is the only thing. Eckler would be interesting. Henry would be a lot of fun. I think Bears Bones, you have to admit, because I know you also said this too, that, don't pay for a running back. It's that thing of like the analysis side of me says don't pay, but it'd be a lot of fun to get Henry. It's like if you're spending your money and you're like, man, I know I shouldn't get this, but oh man, would this be fun, right? Like the fan in me wants it, but I think from a money side, I get nervous about it. But maybe if it's just one, it might be interesting. But yeah. Todd saying, I like Henry, just too much money. Broski saying, I think cornerback is a sneak free agent position Bears might target. I'm not sure they sign or tag JJ. And then Broski also saying, Bears need speed at running back. I'm tired of our running backs not making big plays. I think that's a good point. I think in the offs, I think what we might do, like looking for someone to draft, I think it's a good idea to get someone that has that speed. Because, we don't really have that. Khalil Herbert is the most that he has that speed, or he has some good speed, but it's not like like no one, when they think of a fast running back, thinks of Khalil Herbert first, or even like 10th, or even like 20th, right? like he's got solid speed, but he's not got that game wrecker speed. So I understand with that. True Blue NYC is saying, how many 3rd and 1s did we not convert last year? Henry and Jacob solves this. Valid point. I think too also is it also Getsy as well with that, because you also have one of the best running quarterback. Actually, you might have the best running quarterback ever. And we weren't able to convert it with some of that stuff, right? Because Getsy would be like, all right, guys, I have a perfect play that I've been saving. It's a screen pass to the right-hand side. 3rd and 1, let's go. Right? That might have been why, but we'll see. We'll see what we end up doing. And that's where I really want to see what is the running back that we want? What is the running back style? Because you look at the Seattle Seahawks, they invested heavily in running back from a draft capital perspective. Charbonnet was a second-round pick, and they didn't even need to do that. They already had a guy. So maybe they go a little bit higher and they draft someone like that. But yet again, Charbonnet, big-bodied guy. Wonder if they just like that play style, or we'll have to see what Shane Waldron ultimately wants. I know that Pete Carroll was very adamant about how his running game was being coached, and we have to run it a lot more, just keep on running it ground and pound. So that's definitely something to look out for. So KD's saying, facts, let's draft a true home run hitter. Yeah, Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving I think, is one of our favorite ones, right? Yeah, he can be like Gibbs and Cohen. I totally agree. Yeah, and Gibbs style that we need, I do agree with that as well. Like, we need that person that can kind of go out wide and kind of be that faster, like go out wide, not as in like every single down, you know what I mean? But just be that type of a weapon that you can be like how Tariq Cohen was, where you could put him everywhere because he was just a speedster, just a home run hitter. But let's go over to the tight ends. And let's talk about this, because right now we don't really have any tight ends. We still have that Steven Carlson guy. We still have not re-signed like a Mercedes Lewis or Robert Tonyan, and them being former Green Bay people. Are they going to want to stay here, or are they going to want to move on? So let's look at some of these tight ends. And I had to add this one guy because he's the person that everyone's talking about, and that's Noah Fant, the tight end from the Seattle Seahawks, 3 years, $8 million. And as we kind of go down, some of these players that might be okay with being that tight end too: Hunter Henry, 2 years, $6.13 million. Adam Troutman, 2 years, $4.25. Now we start getting into the range that I like. Austin Hooper, 1 year, $2 million. Mike Gesicki, 1 year, $2 million. Now, I already tipped my hand. I like the idea of like an Austin Hooper, solid veteran tight end, can find the holes in the zone. That could be a good, solid number 2 option. Like, that's what I kind of liked about the Robert Tonyan signing last year. You get the good, solid tight end that has been a starter for everyone else, but will be a backup for you. Mike Gesicki is someone interesting because it seems like at that tight end position, I think it depends on how Shane Waldron will want to use a second tight end. Gesicki really is more that big slot tight end than the actual true inline tight end out there. So that's where, to me, Gesicki would be interesting. Austin Hooper would be interesting, but I wouldn't want to spend a lot of money because it actually looks like, True Blue, you beat me to it. Like Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers could slide to the Bears at 9, and we've talked about this before. There might not be any wide receivers that are available, like any receivers that are available for the Bears, and Brock Bowers is the next person out there. People are saying he's the blue chip tight end that's coming in, one of the best prospects that we've seen, slightly undersized, but now these undersized tight ends are playing a lot better. So I like going, if you're going to sign a tight end, go with someone cheap. Go with the Gesicki, go with an Austin Hooper. And quite frankly, like, I'm not a huge fan of Fant just because I think he's good, but at that 8 million mark, I'm like, ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, especially since when you consider we're paying like $10 million to Cole Kmet to be our number 1. That's something that I'm curious about. But also, Todd, good point. Jatavion Sanders, the tight end out of Texas, he's one of those people you put on the tape, and he's that perfect, like, he is the day 2 tight end. Everyone else is day 3, and then Brock Bowers is like top 10, right? So there's really only like 2 tight ends that are seen as day 1. One's day 1, one's day 2, and then everyone else all day 3. But I want us to draft some more players like what we did with Stover. And getting more of those tight ends that we can kind of compile this tight end room, because we got no tight end room. We got Cole Kmet, and that's about it. But if we continue looking to Henry and Troutman are interesting, but it's still, I'd rather just go cheap. I'd rather go someone that is proven that you can bring in and be that backup and be used inside of this system. And I still don't mind if you bring in Austin Hooper And even if Bowers is available, I don't mind getting Brock Bowers and bringing in more talent because now, people go down with injuries, but also, too, you're in the business of adding good players. Now, what we know about Ryan Poles, he says you got to fill the roster in free agency and then build the team through the draft. And that's exactly what the Bears need to do. That's what good GMs do. So fill out your roster. But also, yeah, so let's get in. And I do agree with True Blue on this point. I think this is a good point. Agreed about Fan is too expensive. Worried that Waldron brings him over and pays up for him. That is something that I'm a little nervous about too. And the thing, Noah Fant, I don't know how much, he hasn't given a lot of production. Honestly, I think he's always he's kind of like the off-brand version of David Njoku, where everyone's like, oh, this is Njoku's year, right? In fantasy football, this is Njoku's year. This is Fant's year. But he never has really kind of taken that step, taken that leap. So yeah, I hope that we don't pay all that extra money for Noah Fant. But let's continue talking about some of these free agents, shall we? So we went through the tight ends. Now, because I mentioned, at the other positions, not going to talk too much about it. I mean, we could actually break down the tight ends, even though I don't have, the cornerbacks, even though I don't have a graphic on it. But let's talk about some offensive tackles. And also Todd saying, could you imagine Komet and Bowers? That'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. I think it'd also be it'd be also really interesting too, because name another team that has two good tight ends that they use frequently, right? I think that would be its own distinct thing about Chicago. And watching the Bowers tape, it's he's a fun guy to watch. He's got incredible hands. He breaks tackles. It's awesome. But yeah, Broski's saying it's great to have a field stretching tight end, but we can get a Theo Johnson, who is Komet clone in the fourth. Yeah, Theo Johnson, very, very good athlete. And yeah, you can get him in the fourth. So I like the idea of getting some of that depth, right? Even if the Bears had let's just say that they don't sign anyone, right? And they get Bowers with the 9th pick. If they get Bowers with the 9th pick, I'm more than fine with getting another tight end in the 4th to 5th round, just to kind of make it so that you actually have people that will be on the team next year at the tight end position. Remember when we used to have 12 tight ends on the team? Good times. Also, guys saying Bowers and Powers. Yeah, I like that. And then Todd saying too, AJ Barner later. Yeah, he's not bad either. There's just a lot of the tight end class is weird because there's the day 3 people. I go, yeah, I like that guy. I like that guy. That guy's good too. There's just a lot of those people later on in that day 3 range. But let's go over to the offensive tackles, because I know a lot of people. I'm a Braxton Jones fan. I like Braxton Jones. I'm not here to tell you that he's the greatest tackle of all time, but I like him. I think that he's a good player, but also too, we have to factor in as well. He started out with a neck injury this year. He was missing time. He was kind of that surprise that all of a sudden he was out. So I'm curious, was he kind of nursing that throughout his time this year? Because he didn't look like the same run blocker, the agile player that we once saw, where I remember watching his rookie tape going, man, this guy in the run game, he was unstoppable. And then I think that this year he was slightly better in the passing game. Now he's not this dominant tackle, but I know that it seems like Poles really likes him. But I wanted to just say, what about the offensive tackles? What if they want to go veterans? Wanted to kind of discuss that with all of you. So let's go and switch over to the tackles. Now, from the tackles perspective, Jermaine Illuminor is someone to look out for, that he is kind of he played very well, surprisingly well for the Raiders. 2 years, $7.25 million average. And I didn't want to go for the high price tackles. There's not a lot of them out there, but Jonah Williams is projected to get $15 million. And then you look at a Michael Onwenu is projected to get $14.5 million. And Tyron Smith projected to get $10 million. And I just can't see him moving away from Dallas ultimately. So these are more of like the middle range people if they wanted to get someone. Mekhi Becton, I wanted to throw him out there, $5 million for 1 year. Just would be interesting to see because he's been battling injuries. And as I say that, then that's probably where he'll be removed off of the Bears board. But also Trent Brown, 2 years, $7.5 million a year. That would just be fun. I put on Trent Brown just because Trent Brown is a mammoth of a human and Darnell Wright is a mammoth of a human. And I just want to see two gigantic walls with legs at the tackles position for the Bears. So out of comedy, that would be kind of interesting to see. But the other people too, I wanted to see the other tackles. George Fant could potentially be a swing tackle if they ultimately wanted to move on from Larry Borom. Would be a $5 million for that 1 year, but would give you a good backup. So if any of those tackles were to go down, Fant can come in and give you solid play out of there. Nothing to write home about, nothing to, go jumping for the moon about, but he can give you good play. Then the last person, Cam Fleming, is someone to keep an eye out for. Only $2.5 million for 1 year. Yet again, more that swing tackle, has had a lot of experience playing that position. So if they want to go more experienced rather than Larry Borom, this could be one of those routes. Todd's saying he needs competition. We can't afford to trust him solely. And that's where, do you throw in a veteran? Do you draft someone slightly later on? Also, Broski saying, I like what Eric Kramer said. We need a stud left tackle. Olu Fashanu is the man. Tough to pass on him if Marvin Harrison Jr. and Neighbors are off the board. Now, this is also something too, and I haven't talked about this yet on the show. With drafting a tackle, the thing that is interesting is that historically, tackles don't produce their year one. Usually they're just, they need multiple years to get better and multiple years to get into the swing of things. Now, if you do something like that, do you move that? Like if you draft an Olu, do you just keep him at left tackle and you say, you're going to learn this position, and then you move Braxton inside? Or do you have Olu develop? Do you have him at guard, right? There's a lot of different combinations. And if the Bears keep the same idea, we're going to have the best five out there. And, we still have the same offensive line coach. That's something that I'm always curious about with the tackles. But yeah, Olu Fashanu, we were talking about him as a blue chip prospect last year. And we just never saw this gigantic leap, this gigantic step. But he's one of the best pass blockers out there. Very, very good. So yeah, he's most likely going to be available at 9. But something to look out for. And then True Blue saying free agency for O-line seems weak this year. Totally agree. Totally agree with this. Not really many of those big names, but the draft feels loaded in round 1. Fuaga would be nice with the number 9 pick to be a guard for us. So I agree there too. And the offensive line, like we've talked about with the 9th pick, if those receivers aren't there, it's really offensive line. Like offensive line will be there. You can pick your, whoever you want at the defensive line position, but defensive line still kind of feels in that teens type of a range where you could maybe get them. But yeah, offensive line, the tackle class is loaded. So I think that's a good question for the Bears to ask is, what could Braxton Jones be a guard? Do they see him as a guard? Because remember too, Ryan Poles was very, very reluctant to move Tevin Jenkins to the guard position. He said, yeah, we saw him as not a guard. We did not see him as that. And then now he's been a very, very good guard for the Bears. So, yeah. And then Todd saying if any vets are over 27, then Poles won't sign him. Yeah, he wants to stay young. Mercedes Lewis is an outlier. I do agree there. Broski saying Fashanu as a rookie can be better than Braxton. Now, I'll see. I want to see it, right? I think that tackles, like I said, tackles don't produce usually in that first year. Fashanu has never let up a sack in his career. What more of a step do you need? I'm just saying. I think that the main thing was just the tape. I haven't ground a lot of Fashanu tape yet, but just from the experts that I'm hearing, it's just they were like, he's not been the person that they've or like he's been good, right? He's been good, but they were looking for like elite. They were looking for like Penei Sewell style of tape type of thing. True Blue NYC, Braxton is decent. We have bigger holes at, yeah, exactly. Center and guard. And the thing, too, that I want to mention as well is when you draft one of these, if you were to draft a tackle, where could you draft a guard? Like Christian Haynes, right? Some of those guards are going second, third. Like you could get the best guard in the second round. You can get the best guard in the third round. Or like, the next best one in the third. That's where, when you're talking about building that offensive line, that's why I think I'm curious. And I think it ultimately goes down to what they think of Braxton Jones. I can't see them moving off of Braxton. I think that Poles really, really likes Braxton Jones. And that's where I can't see them moving off. But yeah, too, also there's this old adage, creep back towards average. You want an average offensive line at least, because if you have that hole on it, then that's when all the pressure goes up the middle, right? And that bad spot was Nate Davis and Lucas Patrick. They were so bad that people could just go right up the middle, and then it caused everyone else to have some issues. So let's go to the next position, though. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive guards. Let's flip over to this. And from a guard perspective, there's actually a handful of very expensive guards out there. Now, Nate Davis, a lot of you might be curious, how much could we save with Nate Davis if we ended up cutting Nate Davis and designated him as a post-June 1st cut? It would be 2.35 savings for Nate Davis. So, some of these guards that I just put as like most likely too expensive, the guard class is actually good. You got Kevin Dotson. He's projected to get 17.25. Robert Hunt is projected to get 17.25, I believe, as well. Damian Lewis is from the Seattle Seahawks, projected to get 10.5. And then Jonah Jackson projected 10.25. Ezra Cleveland, 9.5. And Dalton Risner, 8. So if you're looking at other guards that the Bears might be looking to target, maybe they're looking for a swing person. Maybe they're looking for a replacement for like a Ja'Tyre Carter. Would they? They haven't yet. And like what was previously stated, the Bears like to keep their roster young. There's John Feliciano, 1 year, $2 million. Greg Van Roten, who both of them have been kind of these solid backup guards if they wanted to go with something like that and cut base with a Nate Davis. So I think that might be the play. If they really don't believe in Nate Davis, do you bring in a veteran and then try and draft someone, draft an offensive lineman like what we were talking about, and then you have someone play that guard position, but you at least have one of these other players that could fill in. Some other players that are more of the starters, Graham Glasgow, I get iffy about that, $6.5 million. The reason why I was iffy is he had a really good year this year. Kind of like a outlier. He's been kind of aging a little bit. Big year. Kevin Zeitler has been an ageless wonder at the guard position, but has been one of the better guards, projected to get $7.25 million. And John Runyon from the Packers projected $6.67. Never been a huge fan of John Runyon. I think he's just kind of okay. I would rather just kind of keep Nate Davis if you're looking at like a Glasgow or a Runyon. Just wanted to throw a couple of those players out there. Any thoughts? Like guards is weird because of that whole Nate Davis contract situation for sure. Because like I mentioned, Nate Davis, you can cut him post June 1st at 2.35. And since the Bears haven't designated that, I'm curious to see, are they still in their evaluation and saying, listen, we've seen this guy play a lot better. We've seen this guy play well, and we just ultimately think that he's going to stay a Chicago Bear, and he's going to give us what we saw at the Titans. He just had his family tragedy, and that's why we didn't see good play out of him. So if they feel that, if they think that, yet again, this is just me speculating, if they feel that, then why not just, draft a guard, draft maybe a tackle as well, because that Larry Borum's contract is going to be up at the end of this season. Not this season, but the following season. So definitely something to be looking at. True Blue saying Nate Davis was injured from the preseason. I believe maybe it impacted 100%. I'm kind of leaning towards that as well because Nate Davis has been a solid guard. Now, I did say this when we signed him. He's been a very good run blocking guard. His pass blocking has not, I don't want to say suspect, but his pass blocking has never been as good as his run blocking. But still, he's not what we saw last year. Last year was one of the worst guards in the league. Nate Davis is not one of the worst guards in the league. So yeah, I agree. What was the injury? He said that he was going through something he was going through some tough times. It was like a death of a family member, and that's why he couldn't be around a lot of the practices. So to me, I got to see him day one in practice. Day one, you better be in pads. You better be out there for the mini camps. You better be out there for every single drill, because otherwise you're gone, right? Otherwise, see ya. We'll add one of these veterans that might be available later on. So that's some of the under the radar, if you will, positions that we just have not talked about. Whenever we're talking about something, we're talking about the centers. We're talking about the defense, right? And the wide receivers. We're not talking about these guys. So I hope you enjoyed this. And yet again, comment down below. The running back position, to me, is the most intriguing. Do you think the Bears should sign one of these big name running backs, or do you still want them to try and hit people in the draft, right? Let me know down below. But also, make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube. You guys broke 4,000, so congrats. Thank you all so much. We're over 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. Also, rate the show 5 stars. Download the show everywhere that you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. Make sure to search for Unbearable Sports, and you'll find us there. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair.